Writing in Phrygian Dominant. Coming up. So I had a YouTube viewer ask about how to write in Phrygian Dominant. So just to quickly go through what this video is going to cover. Tips on writing music, tips on writing in Phrygian Dominant, what Phrygian Dominant is, what the Phrygian mode is. So starting off, let's talk about writing music. A lot of times people ask, how do you write songs? How do you write leads? Things like that. Look, there is no real rule on how to write anything. The best way to become good or proficient at lead guitar playing is to play a lot of lead guitar. It's really the only way. Same thing with writing. If you want to get good at writing, you just have to try and write a lot, and eventually you come up with riffs that you really like, progressions that you really like, and so on. So when it comes to how do you write in a specific mode, that gets a little bit more specific, and basically you have to know what makes that mode sound unique. So let's do a little bit of theory. I did put a video out that talks about what modes are. If you haven't watched that yet, or you do not know what a mode is, I invite you to look at that first. So YouTube viewers, click on the annotation up now. If you're watching on Facebook, you're going to have to find the link in the video description. So let's continue on as if you do know at least somewhat what a mode is. So all modes start from your major scale formula. So you have 7 notes in the major scale, and I put the 1 over here again because that's where your octave note's going to be. You got your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes, and then octave note, which is the root note. That's what I'm talking about when I say octave note. So then you have a series of whole steps and half steps that make the major scale formula. So W for whole step, H for half step. Whole step is 2 frets apart, half step is 1 fret apart. So if you go up a whole step from 5, you land on the 7th fret. If you go down a half step from that 7, you land on 6. When you start on any note and you follow this formula, going up a whole step, half step, whole step, half step, you just play the major scale. Anytime you deviate from that formula, you are playing in a different mode. So Phrygian Dominant, the mode in question for this video, is closely related to the Phrygian mode, which does come from your major scale. If you start on the 3rd note in and go through the same amount of steps, land back on that 3rd note, you just played the Phrygian mode. So if you look here at the major scale formula first and you count the halves and whole steps, you're going to have half, whole, whole, half, whole. So let's put that same order of half steps and whole steps starting on the 1st fret, or 1st note, not 1st fret. So we have half, whole, half, whole. So when you start on any note and follow that order of half steps and whole steps, that's the Phrygian mode. To make this even more accurate to read, I'm going to put flat signs in front of some of these intervals so you can see what the difference is between the Phrygian mode and the Ionian mode. Ionian mode is also the major scale. So at first I just wrote out the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 again, just like up above, just to show you that we are dealing with the same number of notes. Now I put in some flats to show you what the actual interval is. So you have a flat second now, a flat third, a flat 6, and a flat 7. These intervals with the flats are what really make this mode sound unique to the major scale. Now, there are other modes that have similar flatted intervals, such as the Aeolian mode, which is the minor scale. The only difference is the minor scale doesn't have a flat second. It has just a natural second or major second. You could also say this flat second is a minor second. All kinds of ways to say the same thing. Again, if any of this stuff is really confusing right now, I highly recommend checking out that video I did explaining what modes are. So in order to make something sound like you're in Phrygian, you basically need to use these flatted intervals frequently enough that you have that Phrygian sound. For example, because the 1, 4, and 5 intervals are the same in Phrygian as in the major scale, just playing those won't produce a Phrygian sound. When you start to add in some of these flatted intervals, then it becomes more Phrygian sounding. All I did there was add in the flatted third and the flatted second to give it that Phrygian sound. Now I'm going to make sure to use the flatted 6th and 7th interval as well. I feel the most important interval to continue to use to make this sound Phrygian is that flat second. So even just using the 1, flat 2, and the flat 3, that will create a Phrygian sound. Now, the Phrygian dominant mode is found in your harmonic minor scale, or the harmonic minor key. The only difference between our Phrygian mode and the Phrygian dominant is you don't have a flat third anymore. You're going to have a major third. So that gives us a formula of 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, and flat 7. Following the half steps and whole steps, you need to go up a half step, half plus a whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, back to the root notes. Now, the intervals that make this unique are flat second, the major third, the flat 6th, and the flat 7. So even though there is a major third in our Phrygian dominant mode, just as there is a major third in the Ionian mode, when you combine these intervals together, this major third really stands out. If all you did was stay with the 1, flat second, and major third interval, it would sound very Phrygian dominant. So when you want to create something that has that Phrygian dominant sound, you want to make sure beyond the root note that you also use that minor second and major third. I like to throw in the 4th interval as well. I like the way it sounds, so that's why I put that in there. One song of mine actually did use Phrygian Dominant for part of an intro. Sounds something like this. Now you could argue that a big portion of that was also based on A harmonic minor, because I was pedaling off of that A note, but because I kept resolving to the open E, I feel that that is the root note of the riff. So that's why I feel that Phrygian Dominant, E Phrygian Dominant, was the main mode for that particular riff. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, as far as how do you write within this mode, the only way you're going to get good at writing in this mode is to try as many different things as you can. All you got to do is start playing around in the notes there and see what you come up with, see what you like. And you don't have to do single notes all the time. You can do chords instead, typically power chords, since most of you viewers are playing metal. And technically, most of those fifth chords or power chords are not in the Phrygian Dominant mode, because not every note can be played with a fifth interval. Like that note right there, a G sharp 5 technically isn't in key, because that would be using a D sharp note. A D sharp is not in E Phrygian Dominant. But anyway, enough about that. So one thing to help you get started, if you don't know a scale shape or mode shape to play, let's start with the E Phrygian Dominant. We'll go up all 6 strings and back down. So you can play around in that scale shape to start creating your own music. I would search on YouTube for E Phrygian Dominant backing tracks in order to practice soloing with that scale. And that scale shape is movable. So you can take the same pattern, but instead of starting with your open string, let's start it on the 5th fret, the A note on your low E string. And again, the exact same pattern of notes, meaning we're going to follow that 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and so on. But we're just going to start it on a different note. Same sound is just going to be a little bit higher pitched because we're starting on an A note instead of that low E. A Phrygian Dominant, which is what I just played, is in the key of D harmonic minor. So you could take that open E Phrygian Dominant and play that an octave higher, and it would go something like this. So one last thing you might want to try is making up different chord shapes within that scale shape. So instead of just playing 5th chords, you can come up with a lot of unique sounds by combining like 2 different notes within that scale shape and see what you come up with. So just for example, things up for this video. Please ask any questions you may have. If you liked what you saw in this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you have yet to do so. I would very much appreciate it. Lastly, Mile High Shred has a Patreon page. It would be very awesome of you to check it out. YouTube viewers can click the annotation up right now for more information. Facebook users, please use the video description to find more information. And thank you very much for watching.